Hi, this is Compound Interest Stock Guy, and today we're with Scott Sycamore, and yeah, we're gonna be chatting about cannabis stocks going on right now, and maybe a little bit of other stuff in it. Hope you like the video. Again, before we get into this, we want to disclose we're not financial advisors. This is just for entertainment information purposes. So yeah. So if you're new to the channel, it'd be cool if you subscribe, help my channel grow, and give me a thumbs up. And yeah, so
Hey, subscribe to me too, man.
yeah, subscribe to Scott Sycamore. How do you find your channel?
Yeah, you just type in Scott Sycamore in that order, and
But how do you do the last name Sycamore?
oh, it's Sycamore, which I know you'll put in this title, so I ain't worried about that.
Okay.
Subscribers are slow to go anyways. I'm starting to get the feeling YouTube is suppressing my subscriber count, but what do I know? I'm just paranoid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't really matter. Like honestly, the subscribership is like I don't intend to make money off this. Like so, it's
Right.
not a big thing that subscribers aren't growing that fast. I think there's some cool subscribers that are like super loyal, I guess, and watching. But I don't really care that much.
My philosophy was always just get the information out there, you know?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
get it out into the electronic jungle, and maybe someone will watch it sometime, maybe they won't, maybe whatever. It's
Yeah.
not really my concern, right? I'm just saying what's on my mind, basically.
Yeah. So Scott's really obsessed with Halo Labs. That's his number one stock.
Ah.
He,
Well, yeah, obsession may be a harshly tinged word, but I'm definitely a believer in them currently. Kind of a religious thing, right? Like Halo. You got T God, another company I like and I've owned before. So it's all like God, Halo, another company we've talked about, Suniva, which means gift of the sun in Gaelic or something. So yeah, it's like Halo, God, Sun, even Aurora. You know, that's the kind of this halo in the sky.
yeah, or Borealis. Yes.
Exactly. So even canopy can mean the sky, basically, right? It's almost like a biblical term of the canopy above the earth, right? Where the
Okay.
sun and the rain and all this good stuff come from. So while we're stretching it out, I know we're way off point. And yeah, Halo Labs, man, AGEEF on the OTC in America. Fuck yeah! So go ahead. You look like you're saying something.
I've been watching it too a little bit. I think they're doing some cool things. I don't like buying stocks on the OTC markets, so that's kind of prevented me from being interested in buying it. And
Well,
they're on the NEO, but you can't use that through your TFSA as far as I'm aware.
Well, it sounds like we have sort of different issues with our actual brokerage and our location, because you're not able to easily buy OTC like American or whatever stocks in your account.
Well, I bought Kush bottles this week, and it wasn't too difficult. But if I think it's if they're not on the QB or the QX, then it becomes like tricky. You gotta call them over the phone, and just think about it. If I'm calling over the phone and say it's like 2.5 cents, and it takes me 20 minutes to get through to the line, before you know it, it could be like 2.9 or it could be 3.5 cents. And on top of that, they're not going to tell you an actual bid. Like they'll just tell you the last order that went through. So you're like guessing to order. And I've
No,
done it with P and TV, but it's not my fun thing to do for sure.
No, that's no way to trade. I mean, that sounds like the 1930s or something, before there were computers or anything like that, or typewriters even maybe. And yeah, like call, or even through to the 80s and 90s and beyond. You know, people just had to call their brokers to buy any stock, even the big boys. But yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't recommend trading that way. If you have to do anything more than a couple clicks on your brokerage account, I don't know. Like, unless you really are really trying to get into something like obsessively, as you might say, then yeah, but just to buy a few shares or to hedge your portfolio or whatever, there's so many other things you could choose um, that it's just will go lightning fast. So yeah, man. I mean, for me, that's the thing. In terms of Halo specifically, again, they there was kind of a liquidity. I wouldn't call it an issue, but I was getting it pretty soon after it came out. Was available for me here in America to trade, and I was able to get it through my E-Trade account.
So what price did you first get into to Halo?
I don't know at first. I mean, I know you're not supposed to reveal these type of things online, but whatever. Who cares? YOLO, right?
Yeah, you don't have to. I was just
Well,
curious.
I'll tell you because I don't know the first price, but I've made several different buys, and basically my average cost right now is like 37 cents and change, even though that is change already. It's like 37.8 cents total.
Yeah.
American, and so yeah, I mean, it's already above that. I forgot. It actually had today. What is today? March 11th, right? 12th, 2019.
Yeah.
So that was today, is today, and so it dipped down pretty significantly, but then came right back up by the end of the day. Like it dipped down to 46 or 47 cents, but then when I looked at like after closing, it was back up to 49 or something. So, and in this game, in this kind of stock, 2 or 3 cents is actually a pretty big move. That's what's so crazy, when it goes down 3 cents, that's like almost 8% or something like that,
Yeah.
So if you have a bigger position, that's real money,
Yeah,
that's real
that's
money.
true.
That could be 4 figures. So yeah, I got into Halo when I could. I made a couple different purchases, and again, let us reiterate: this is not advice. We're not saying anyone to buy anything. I'm just talking about what I have done.
Oh,
I'm not saying anyone should copy me or you or us. So I got in, but I was really early on with this thing. I wanted to get in early, as that's what you should be doing, right? So, I fortunately was in a position where I could get some shares, and I mean, I've done all that I can now. So that's it. I mean, there could be wild swings. We could talk about the actual company, why I like them. I know we're kind of avoiding that, but
No. I mean, we talked about the extraction. That's pretty much a big reason I think that
yeah, we
that
did do
makes
that.
them attractive, right?
Yeah, it's just the earliness. I've never been this early in on a company before. I've never done like an IPO day purchase or anything like that. Obviously, you hear stories about that kind of stuff, of course.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Australis Capital. I'm sure you kind of know what happened with them, right?
Yeah, but at the the pants, I mean, people were giving those free shares, so they're gonna.
Oh,
They got
that's
them from
right.
Aurora shares.
Right. They just gave away a bunch of shares.
So, I mean, you
right?
gotta think if people don't really give it, they're just gonna, okay, this is a nice holiday for me or something, right?
And they all sell it, basically.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, I mean, yeah, especially if you own a lot of Aurora shares already, like certain people do. And yeah, but I mean, that's its own thing and whatever. But, and it goes down. I mean, I realized that, stocks can go back to the price. T-God was at that recently. I think they're at 320 something or whatever now, but their IPO price was like right around there. It was like right around 3, something like that, right?
Yeah. So for viewers, like I'm from Canada, so when he's talking, he's always going to be talking in US dollars. So don't get too confused. Just add another like 33% or something.
Yeah.
If you want to get it.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up, because I don't know how to convert to Canadian dollars off the top of my head, and obviously, United States is the bigger fucking market anyway, right?
We're the first. Canada.
Yeah, I know. Canada's the innovators, and USA are the takers, right? But we know we could talk about that and how the American wave is hitting and coming next and all that shit. But yeah, I know I may be rambling off topic in these certain parts, but yeah, again to cycle it back to Halo, they came out. You know, I was able to get them. They've been out, according to my charts, they've been in America actively trading now for like 4 or 5 months, right? So we're getting to the 6-month mark with Halo.
So how long have they been a company operating for?
Yeah, they've been a company themselves since 2016.
Okay.
Like, I think like earlier mid 2016, they officially opened in Oregon.
That's nice. I mean,
yeah,
that's what I liked about some companies that I've bought before when they've been operating before for a while. So you're not waiting for their facility to get open and stuff like that.
Exactly, and that leads me to, and that's kind of the investing principle. I like that pie mug, by the way.
Da Vinci. They gave it to me when I bought some cologne.
Nice. So, yeah, that's a big thing that attracted me to Halo and got me to buy some shares. Is that they were an existing company. They did have revenues. They, went public after achieving a level of success in the private market, because they did, and having these different lines and brands and stuff. And so, yeah, it's not so whatever fuckery goes on within the stock markets and manipulation and pumping and dumping and what, dilution, that's a big concern for people, right? Diluting the stock they do things like issuing warrants, right? We know that the warrant trading game is huge. I don't know if we talked about that last time, but I know we have.
It's going on.
Yeah, but warrants is also a way that companies can dilute their stock. So if there's 100 million warrants coming due in the next year or whatever, that's a big difference, right? It's a big difference between what the previous investors invested in for the float. So that's something like that's definitely a concern with Halo and with any of these companies.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I don't want to cut you off, but I'll tell you a story what happened to me, because I made money with Suniva, and what happened is I wanted to get back into it, and it went down to 983, so I thought that was a buy, and all of a sudden it was halted, and then there was a PP, and ever since that's happened, it's gone down as low to $2.83.
What is a PP?
A private placement. That's where they issue shares, and then a half warrant or a one warrant. So yeah.
Right. So a bunch of private investors get in and take a big bite of the company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, sure. I own Suniva a little bit. Nothing too much, but I know of it. Obviously, we talked about it. California company. But yeah, they had gotten up. They had gotten up there to like $16
Yeah,
US.
I sold out at like 14, 15 first time. But yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's had the big rise and the big fall. I noticed on the NASDAQ, I don't know if you messed around with this. I heard of this through Rich TV, but if you go to the NASDAQ site and you can type in the stocks on your watch list, and for some of them it'll give you like a price prediction. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen it on NASDAQ, but I look at certain stocks, and Cannacord's pretty active on giving price targets on some stocks.
Canaccord, that's the company that's behind financing all these.
Yeah, they're a fun company. What they'll do, I'll tell you what they do. These guys, they'll do a PP. It's happened before with TGIF. They'll issue all this private placement money at, say, 25 cents. And they'll short the shit out of these stocks after they do that. And they'll keep doing it for like months on end. And then when they're ready, then they'll pump it up.
That's actually legal to do for them?
Canada, is pretty loose on regulations, man, as far as the stock exchange. That's why, if you've ever seen Alan Bronstein on Midas Letter, he's said it before that the Canadian, like there's leaks, like there's usually leaks involved when there's something, say there's a merger or an acquisition going on,
Yeah.
but it doesn't happen in the States.
The leaks don't happen.
Not as often, no.
Yeah, I mean, we got to be more aggressively corporate and zipped up here. Well, it's because of the regulations, like you're saying. Wow, I didn't know Canada was quite that unregulated, but it does make sense. I remember hearing vague talkings of how Canada's a little more, and it has things like the NEO exchange, stuff like that. You know, well, actually, they're supposed to be like more regulated, but that's a whole other banana right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but that's interesting. And one thing I was discussing earlier with my buddy, again on this topic of sort of financing and how these companies raise money and warrants and dilution and stuff like that. Yeah, you know, a company like Halo Labs, they do have a bunch of outstanding warrants and options, and have taken on the toxic financing loans from whatever, you know, whatever their damn structure is behind there. Now, I know that the astute investor, especially in penny stocks or whatever, is supposed to be very like militant about that stuff and kind of staying away from it. But you know, that's the other side of the coin is, and I'll ask you about this, is like, how else are these fucking upstart marijuana companies supposed to get money, especially if banks and regular places can't loan to them, right?
Yeah, you do raise a good point. The reality is it's been a lot easier for Canadian companies to raise money in the last year or so than companies such as Halo Labs. I also think that's a thing for why some of these OTC stocks are attractive, because they're not on the Canadian exchanges and they're not on the NASDAQ. So there's no saying that when legalization happens that Halo Labs can't get onto the NASDAQ, or like I'd say like Kush Bottles and CVSI and some others will get onto the NASDAQ probably this year. So you can get them for discount on the OTC. But as soon as they go to the NASDAQ, they'll ride them up, and then they'll dump them hard. But that's why you can look at some of these stocks on the OTC, and they do have good potential. So something to think about.
Absolutely, and it all depends on, like usual, like any business, who's making a lot of money, who's executing right, you know, keeping everything in check, the debt and whatever. And and then it's really a price consideration, right? Like, to jump up to those bigger exchanges, you have to maintain a certain price for a certain amount of time, something like that, right?
Yeah, $4 generally.
Right, $4, $5, whatever. So you have to be a $5 stock for, you know, and prove yourself as one to stay on there. And then from there, you know, you get into creating options on these companies. But I did want to talk about that, but we'll circle around to that. But another thing, yeah, I mean, a sort of thing that's been in my mind for something like Halo is, like, I know you have been saying, they could get acquired for something around $1 a share. That is possible. I think, I feel like I could be wrong. It's like, they might not be the company themselves that goes onto the NASDAQ or whatever, but they could get bought by, the Harvest Health or fucking, whatever, can name your company, Truliev or Canopy Rivers or any of these entities, right? So that's always a possibility. And then someone like, if you're a shareholder like me, you would get stock in the new company, with the new company. And then maybe they go to the New York Stock Exchange or whatever, and hopefully it becomes this big, long-term transformer of a win. But we'll see. I've heard Halo floated for a buyout at about $300 million. This is just someone on a message board saying this, but they said, they could get bought out around $300 million market cap. That would be a steal. And I think they're at about 70 to 80 million US right now, something like that. So. we'll see, man.
Yeah,
That
so
is.
can we stop talking about Halo? Like for just we can talk about some other things too.
Sure.
Um, yeah, no, Halo's got a lot of things going for it. Yeah, these some of these companies, some with the USA, they're basically uh like AUSA and Rivers and like Acreage and all these other ones. They're new to the game, and they're all trying to collect pieces to their puzzle. So that's where some of these smaller guys can come in, and they can fill in the missing pieces that they are. So
Sure.
that's
Well,
why
they're
you don't
trying
always
to
have to look at the biggest companies when you're investing, because some of these small ones will get picked up as well.
right. It's like it's better right now to buy a smaller company that will get uh, consumed by a big one, and therefore just part of that thing. So it's because they have something valuable, right? I mean, that's the thing. These companies are trying to be vertically integrated, as they call it, whatever that really means, but it just means top to bottom, right? I guess. Like, they just want everything. They want everything from the growing of the stuff to the selling to the technology and all that. So it's they're trying to get scooped up, and yeah, I mean, that's where it gets tricky, of course, with the valuations and how much do you pay to buy companies, and what do you really need. Like, I assume a lot of the space will be whoever has, like, patents, of course, are always good. I know a company like Sproutly, which doesn't really move on the stock-wise, but they supposedly have patents for delivery system. I mean, all these companies will get into it or have some sort of method. It's a secret sauce that they can deliver to the cannabis industry. So, but yeah, we'll see. But I don't know how it's all going to play out. There's a lot of holding companies and stuff, right? Like the Australis and shit like that, right?
Yeah, it's tricky. I've noticed. I mean, a lot of the new investors, they don't want to touch the small companies. They want to follow the big names, and then they don't have to do the research. They just are like told by their friends, "Oh yeah, we're cannabis is a good stock." And I think that's why those companies go to such outrageous valuations as well. And I mean, I know they got lots of cash, Chronos and Canopy, but I think on a valuation scale, some of the smaller ones have a lot to offer, and they're basically like being like shoved to the side. And they do have to prove themselves, and so that's the risk you take on the smaller guys. And I don't know. It's tough. You gotta do your research and realize what the company's doing and stuff like that. With any of these companies, there's so many companies coming out, and when you're picking your stocks, so
Yeah, I mean, you can't have the big bubbles, I guess, without sort of uneducated investors getting in there, or just big money pumping into it because whatever, like it's the cool new thing, and they wanna hedge their portfolio or just try some, experiment. And yeah, I mean, what do you make of that? Like, if Aurora's the biggest stock on Robinhood or whatnot, and all the millennials are buying it, I mean, that's what it takes to become this Tesla-like fucking entity, right? I mean, just all the people just buying your stock on their phone for free, I mean, for no fees, I should say, not for free.
Yeah, no, you do make a point. There's a big cult following with Canopy and Aurora, and I mean Tilray and Chronos. I think I don't think there's such a cult following with Tilray just because it's a small float. The big market makers can move that thing on their own, but I don't know. It's confusing for sure.
And that's why Tilray went ballistic last year, because of the float size.
Yes. It's
That's
very
the main,
tight.
that's the main, like,
Yeah, I mean that's the same thing with Village Farms. It doesn't have as tight of a float. Actually, I can't really be sure of that, but there was like 90 million shares, but maybe Tilray only had like 10 million shares out, or it's like 15 million. That's what it is, I think.
I think so.
So it's like a super low float. But actually, another company that might get pumped up really hard soon is Pixis, because their facility for hemp just got finished, and their float's only 7 million. So, that's why Village Farms being pumping so hard, because there's like 45 million shares out, and so you got all this NASDAQ investors that see this company and they're thinking, okay, I better get on this train. So they pump it up. So there's no real valuation as far as like metric to say, okay, when you're buying it right now, it's a good valuation. It's going on big institutional and new retail investors from the NASDAQ that can now get their hands on these stocks.
Yeah, and you know, and again, when you have things like options attached to your stock, it's going to increase the general liquidity by a huge margin, because the options feed into the stock and vice versa, and it's just more attention focused on you. And yeah, I mean, if you're some hedge fund or whatever, and you say, oh, we want to buy Cannabis stock or Aurora or whatever, and you know, if we make 7% on it this year, we're kicking serious ass. We're kings of the world, right? Because we're playing with a couple $1 billion or 100 million or whatever they're pumping into it, right? So, yeah, I mean, these companies have gotten to some pretty big valuations. I mean, I think the average person on the street or the average investor would be pretty impressed if you showed them, oh, hey, there's this marijuana company that's worth whatever, $6 billion US, right? That's impressive. That's impressive. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree, man. I think there's still like another big wave, man, of people that haven't even started to invest. You know, I go to these liquor stores and I just like joke with the cashier, and I told them about Martha Stewart and just stuff like that, and they have no idea that like things, because they're involved with Corona, so they sell Corona every day. And Corona Constellation brands.
Yeah, well, Constellation, which has the Constellation has the deal with Canopy, right? So they own like 40%, right?
Yeah, eventually they'll own 55 or 52 or something like percent for $5 billion. Well, they've already paid $5 billion cash, and then they're going to throw more into the till.
They're folding like the Canopy product chain into their brand, whatever their brand alcohol, whatever they got going on, everything basically, right? Yeah. That's crazy. What a corporate merger there. It reminds me, you mentioned Kronos. I saw something that they soon they will effectively be owned by Altria, correct?
Yeah.
A tobacco company mainly, right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. So it's already happening. I mean, what we were talking about a couple years from now, because again, an associate of mine, he says he thinks Aurora specifically might be a good target for like a big pharma.
I think so. They have Capsum Inc. and they have these CBD gels, and they also a place nearby. They have a really good laboratories. It's called Anandia Laboratories, and they got it for $22 million.
I heard about that.
And the scientific guys like really smart. So they have some pretty good scientific people within Aurora. Again, they're a top rec brand as well, because they got MedReleaf and their brand. But as far as it goes, like I could see them getting acquired a deal with Coke or something like that for some CBD and then THC drinks. And then a big pharma want to deal with them. Just because it's not just their brand, they also bought out Canamed, and Canamed's pretty good with their scientific and all their medicine stuff.
Yeah.
And MedReleaf is top as well.
I mean, Aurora's definitely trying to fire on all cylinders, like vertically integrated and then some, right? So, I can see that. I remember the Coke rumor that came out, and then there was, the price spiked and went back down and all that good shit. But, it makes sense, man. I mean, but if that's what's going to happen, then yeah, we're well on our way to like the biggest of the big boys in the business world. Kind of scooping up these companies.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're all along for the ride. But as we talked about last last session, last interview, is yeah. I mean, we're just getting started. I saw a thing on our boy. I don't want to keep saying his name, but our mutual that dude we both mutually watch on his channel, and there was an article that the cannabis, I don't know, maybe they were talking about just the United States in this article, but they said, oh, the entire cannabis sector is going to be worth 130 billion by 10 years from now, like 2029 or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just thought, that's a low number. That just sounds like a low number.
I listened to the guy Todd Harrison. He's very smart, and he thinks it'll be $1 trillion in 10 years. And
now he's talking globally. He's talking worldwide.
Yeah, globally.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, again, that's what, not even 10x from right now. Let's say it's 9x from right now, 900% bigger. I mean, yeah, if legality and all that happens, to me that's a no-brainer. We're talking 10 years from now. Right? 10 years is a long time, especially these days.
Yeah.
Right. With the speed of how things move.
Yeah, because you got all these states, and you got to think about on top of that, within these states, more stores are opening up in more municipalities. More stores, it's
yeah. I mean, it's again. I think I mentioned this last time, but it's the savior of retail. I just saw an article yesterday. I think like 4,000 plus regular old school retail stores have closed in the United States this year in 2019. So J.C. Penney and all these, whatever. I can't remember the other ones, but you know the type.
You can make a point. I agree. It can save a lot of retail jobs, like add a lot of them. Because not on top of that, there's going to be CBD shops and stuff like that, and just more stores like Whole Foods or whatever. They'll have more CBD stuff.
Oh yeah, exactly. They'll have it on Amazon. They'll have it at Whole Foods. They'll have it at every. It's going to get to a point where it's basically going to be everywhere. It's going to be like, yeah. I mean, it's already in 7-Eleven-ish places near me. So like, there's a boutique, like expensive little corner marketplace right here, right behind me, like the next block over, and they have CBD products in there. Not a ton, but they have some. But they sell nice, specialty wines and whatever, French foods and all that crap. And then, so that's like a corner marketplace for food. And then the vape smoke shop a couple blocks down, they have CBD stuff too. So they have like cigars and then, like bongs and stuff over here. And then, but they have CBD gummies and little capsules and stuff. So that's two kind of like totally different places. That you saw that. What is it? Is it Payless Shoes now because of the Green Growth brand? You know that whole thing, right? Green Growth brands. Do you know this whole? Okay.
I know about Green Growth brands, but I don't know the story.
So Green Growth brands somehow is behind Payless Shoes.
Okay.
Shoe store in America, which is another one of those retail chains that's closing like crazy. But it's like, Ed Green Growth is now a weed, or the CEO has involved with Payless. Now basically they're gonna have CBD in a shoe store. Like, where does that even come into play? And again, it's like it's trying to save their shit because they have this Green Growth brands, Peter Horvath, Victoria's Secret experience connection guy, and so yeah, man. So again, this is Cali, and things might move. Well, maybe not move quicker than Canada, but yeah, man. And by the way, the reason we don't have Aurora and brands and stuff here is because in California, everything that's sold here has to originate here, and same with every other state in the United States.
Yeah. So there's also that thing in Canada as well, to a certain extent.
I believe
it. Yeah, like on the eastern provinces and Quebec, I think it's kind of similar to that. It's easier for those companies to get a deal with the province of Quebec if they're in Quebec. It used to be you had to be in Quebec. Quebec, it's the French, and it was that's why Aurora has Aurora B and Canopy has one there, and Hexo's big in there because they're all in Quebec. But
Yeah.
and then the eastern provinces, it was kind of harder, I think, for some of the companies to get deals with them.
Wow.
But I mean, they all need supply, so they're all gonna like get it from everywhere. So
yeah, it's still so growing. It's like a fucking baby fetus being formed from the stem cells. Although we're further along than we think, you know. Yeah, but and again, we could all throw number predictions, and it's going to be worth this much and that much around. But I mean, you really, if you just follow your nose, no pun intended, and follow common sense, it's like, where else does it have to go? You think the global cannabis industry is going to get smaller? It doesn't seem that way, unless everywhere cracks down and makes it illegal, like it always has been. But that's not the trend, right? That doesn't seem to be the direction.
No, I've noticed. I was looking at Next Green Wave, and they got some Colombia deal, and as well like PNTEs now going into Argentina.
Latin.
It hasn't. Like the Canadian companies, they've been getting into Europe and South America and some of these like Mexico and stuff. But it's now it seems that USA is going to be starting to get involved with the global expansion now.
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I know, but Canada's had the head start, and
Canada. It's where this whole thing's originating from. But it's also, U.S. and Canada. Yes, it's separate countries, but we're also right next to each other and share common, things about us and everything. So yeah, it's gonna just become this globalized conglomerate of everything. It's kind of like, do you remember how in Ohio, whenever it was in 2016 or whatever, they voted against legalizing weed in Ohio, even though the people actually wanted it, just like they do everywhere, because the reason it was voted down, it was because it was in the bill that like 5 or 10, entities would control everything within the state, right? Well, growers or businesses or whatever, licenses probably.
Sounds like what's going on in Germany.
Germany, yeah, that's not a place for authoritative control. But like, what is the deal there?
Well, there's a lot of companies that want to cultivate there. And there's all this deal for it, like a big tender. But there's one German company that's not set up or whatever, and they're just making this big lawsuit about it, and it's putting all this red tape. It's been over years, and nothing's happened from it.
I mean, the politicians don't know how to deal with all this. It's brand new to them too. They don't know how. They have to cover their asses or whatever. They don't want to be, run afoul of all this stuff and the federal laws versus the state laws and all this jive turkey stuff. So it's like, yeah, no one knows how to treat it. Much like cryptocurrency, they don't even know how to regulate it. Like, where do you even start? What do you do? There is nothing said. There's nothing in the Constitution or whatever talking about this, really. So it's hard to know how to figure it. I'll say, let's finish up within about 5 minutes. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry I talked too much about Halo, by the way, but I know you asked me about it. And and to bring them up one more time, contract with the thing in Africa. That's another area. They have something in the African nation. I've noticed a lot of other companies where they have kind of been getting their little footholds in.
You're saying Halo has something in Africa?
They do indeed. You should look into it. It's in Lesotho, however you say it. Lesotho. I guess that's a country. I'm certainly no geography expert in that region. Yeah. Go ahead. Because they have land there, and sorry, I said go ahead and cut you off, but they have. There's a lot of land there, believe it or not, in Africa. So, they can grow stuff.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. But what's interesting is the deal with the Canadian companies is their first way to get into these countries. It was a lot easier because it's federally legal, medicinal. to export it to, say, Australia, the Cayman Islands, and Europe. But now what we're seeing with what Scott's saying about this halo with the Africa and Next Green Wave and PNTV, they're going to Argentina and Colombia. But they're working directly in that country because they're not able to ship it to from USA to these countries. So this is their way to be a global player without breaking federal laws.
Right, exactly. So it was federally medicinally legal in Canada before it was recreational. Interesting. Yeah, so that's big. So there's your answer right there. I mean, that's why these companies have been allowed to grow quicker and before their American U.S. counterparts and all that. And just as a matter of geography, Latin America makes perfect sense. It's got zillions of people, a lot of weed smokers, I'm going to guess, and you know it's there. It's to the south of the U.S. and Canada, and why wouldn't you start there? And guess what? They have a ton of land, kind of like most regions of the world, most land masses, right? So, yeah, it's like why go? Why try to go to China or something and try to blow that up? No, we got to go with where the hoss is. And yeah, I mean, if Africa is open to it, obviously Europe in certain areas, I mean, that's huge. That's a big old chunk of the world right there.
Yeah.
And they're getting on board, so pretty tight. As investors and commentators, I think that's a lot of fuel for the fire.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it'll be similar to all the best places to grow coffee. Pretty much, think about Colombia or some places in America.
Nose coffee as well.
Yeah. But Chile and Guatemala and all these different countries like
Brazil
that have great coffee and they have lots of land. They can use this as a job opportunity for their people, and that's what PNTV. That's why they got to deal with the government because it's going to help out the jobs in these countries too. So it's helping out their economy.
That's Players Network?
Yes.
Or the other one?
PNTV.
Players Network, yeah.
I have a small position in them. But
keep bringing them up. Yeah, I remember hearing about them. I don't know if it was, I think it was Players Network or Pot Network or both.
Yeah.
Back when I first kind of started hearing about these pot stocks from a homeless black guy who hung out at the coffee shop.
This is how you get involved in investing in cannabis.
Exactly. But fortunately, it's public, so it's all legit, right?
That wasn't for me. I got involved in a different way, but that's cool.
I know. I'll tell you that quick story before I go. I remember I was hanging out at my usual coffee shop. This is in basically Beverly Hills, right? So a really nice part of L.A. And I'm sitting there on my computer just like now, and I get up either to walk away or go get a napkin or something. And this black dude who was sitting kind of across from me, like he couldn't see my computer screen, right? But then I get up and I walk by him. He's like, yo, man, what are you investing in? Like, what are you looking at? What companies or something like that, right? I was like, what? How'd you know? Because I was looking at my like E-Trade account or something right then. He must have sneaked a look, man. But if he did it, it was real slick because I didn't notice. And he's like, what companies you looking at, man? I'm like, oh, whatever. Probably something stupid like bullshit like Facebook or something. And he's like, oh, yeah, I mean, I've been getting in these weed stocks and I made 300% on. I think he was investing like $20 at a time. You know what I mean? Like he would put like $10 in his Fidelity account and buy like whatever Pot Network and shit like that. But I think this was around maybe even before like not before the first big explosion. That was about 2014, right? 2014 was kind of where it all went crazy at first.
Yeah, I wasn't in 2014. I got involved in 2016.
Yeah, this was probably maybe right before that or right after that. I think it might have been before, maybe the summer of then. So good time to be in. But yeah, we're riding the wave on a big level. So listen, man, I'm going to wrap up now. It's been awesome. We'll definitely do this again soon. I'd do it more later tonight if you want, but we'll discuss that offline. But yeah, man, so always good stuff, and we'll be researching all the people out there. Peace. We love you, etc. if you're cool.
Yeah, subscribe to the Scott's channel, subscribe to my channel, helps our channels grow. We appreciate it. Give us a thumbs up on this video. And yeah, until next time, peace.
Capiche? Take it easy, man.